Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roach, your host. I'm excited to have XYPN member Martha Williams, owner of Williams Wealth Services, a fee-only firm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the show today. Like many advisors, Martha began her career in this industry, spending substantial time in the bank channel, at broker-dealers, and independent BDs, from Merrill Lynch to Whittle and Reed. Throughout her professional career, Martha has always had, as she describes it, a burning desire to help people. In 2017, she finally broke out on her own, and she was able to transition and continue to serve over 40 client households from her previous firms, preserving the long-term relationships that she had built over those years. Today, she currently works with over 65 client households in a fee-only and comprehensive manner and feels really comfortable with that client level. She enjoys the flexibility that owning her own firm affords her, really enjoys leveraging her network and spending time on her creative pursuits. Martha has a unique experience having spent more than 30 years in this industry. And we talk about the imposter syndrome, the role of women in this profession, and where she thinks the industry is heading. Martha is interested in supporting others who are entering this industry and encourages anyone who wants to run their own firm to go for it when the time is right for them. If you're interested in learning from an industry veteran, this episode is for you. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. You can find any of the resources we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/249. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Martha. Hey, Martha, welcome to XYPN Radio.
Hi, Maddie. Great to be here today. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I've really looked forward to interviewing you. With the MES team, the member experience team here at XYPN nominated you to be on this show. I'm really, really excited to showcase kind of what you've built, how you've built it, your experience in this industry to our listeners. So, Martha, why don't you do the honors and introduce the listeners to what you've built? Tell us about your firm.
Okay, so I am located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have about 65 family households. I have my niche, so to speak, is women and business women, but that's not necessarily who I serve. I have a lot of families. I have a lot of people that have, are already in the retirement area, in that retirement years. I have some that are preparing for those years and some that are pretty far away from that. So I've got kind of a wide, swath of clients.
Yeah, and 65 client households is a pretty impressive number. That's really when we start seeing advisors entering that scaling phase and then really start kind of considering do you continue to do all of your work on your own, or do you start outsourcing, hiring? Those kind of questions pop up. So we'll get all into that. But Martha, why don't we go backwards in time as we usually do? And it's my understanding you have spent your entire professional career in this industry. So walk the listeners kind of through some of those high points.
Okay, so I started right out of college in retail banking. I did that for Bank of America initially, and then worked for a small boutique bank, and since it was so small, I could do all the banking pieces, which was awesome. It was great. I got to learn a lot that way. In the early 90s, after my second child was born, I decided I wanted to go into sales. I don't know why. I was out of my mind, but I wanted the flexibility to do that. And I became a mortgage broker at that time. and did that up until the time I started in the investment area, which was in 2007. So I think the reason that I sort of made that switch was that I felt like I was doing in the mortgage piece, I was doing just a small sliver of the financials for clients. And I saw a big gap and need for a lot more assistance there. So that's why and also the relationship piece was really important to me. It's hard to have long-term relationships with mortgage clients because it's a very transactional business. As much as you want it to be, it isn't always that way. So that's why.
Interesting. Were clients asking you financial questions as you were preparing their mortgages?
Yeah. And I think because you're always prepping people as to how they're, what they can afford to buy in a house and what they can, what their whole financial situation looks like. So you could see a lot of it, but it wasn't necessarily something that I dove into all the time, but I was interested in helping a lot more clients, especially those that didn't have housing yet or wanted to buy, but were obviously not ready to do that for a couple of reasons.
Interesting what you said about wanting to get into sales. Talk to us a bit about that transition, and how did you know the sales route was accessible to you, and did you switch companies to make that change?
I did not switch companies at that time. I actually was in what we called at that point quality management in a local, a statewide savings and loan / bank at that time. And I was saying that my department I could see was not a money center. And I was like, okay, this is the one that's going to go away first when things go bad. So it's like, okay, I better figure out where I should be if I want to survive this. And also I wanted to have the flexibility that I saw that position could afford me when I was raising my kids. I was a single mom at the time, and it's just, I needed to have that flexibility. And a lot of jobs don't give you that.
Yeah, absolutely. Flexibility is few and far between in this industry. Were you still at Bank of America? Is that where you moved into?
No, that was much later. That I had moved back from California back to Michigan at that time, and was at what was Great Lakes Bancorp at the time, but it doesn't exist anymore. So.
Yeah. I think it's really important to share with the listeners kind of how you believe or have seen your previous positions impact your ability to succeed in your current position as an owner of your own RIA. It's really interesting talking to folks who have come out of the industry, but also in the industry, how these specific jobs in the banking channels and in the mortgage channels, how that has influenced your ability to be a good business owner. In hindsight, what do you think you brought to the table because of those positions?
Well, I think just the years of experience and knowing kind of the ins and outs of the industry was helpful, although I don't think it's critical for that. I think what's more critical is just a burning desire to help people. I mean, that's what really I think was from my side of it, what I wanted to do. And that's kind of what it was. Not so necessarily that I knew the ins and outs of the business, although it's quite helpful. It wasn't, I think, that important.
Yeah.
For me.
So when did you transition into becoming your own business owner?
So, I got into as a financial advisor in 2007 at Merrill Lynch. That was when I thought, oh, this is, Merrill Lynch is Merrill Lynch, right? And they have a great quote unquote training program. So, and I got in and I thought, well, this is really, really good. They paid me a salary for a period of time. And I thought, well, I can make this work. And yeah, that didn't exactly work. I did manage to stay at Merrill Lynch for 7 years. So I got through the training program, but it was just never what I wanted it to be. I think, first of all, it started out that I got started at 2007. I got passed my Series 7 test at towards September. I was ready to go in September of 2007. And then right after that was the financial crisis. So I got to see a lot of that firsthand. Good thing was I didn't have a lot of clients. Bad thing was I still spent a lot of time with other people's clients, talking them kind of off the cliff and trying to make sure they didn't, get too freaked out by the markets, because it was a daily roller coaster that didn't feel very much didn't feel very good for any of those people that were going through it.
Yeah, I would imagine. And that's a particularly relevant conversation for today. And we'll get there in just a minute. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the Merrill Lynch experience. I remember researching this industry when I was not in the industry, and I stumbled across Merrill Lynch and thought, okay, well, that's my route. And it wasn't until I figured out the CFP existed that I began to then pursue that. But I would have stumbled right into the Merrill Lynch training program. So talk to us about that. How is it set up? How long is it? Was it worth it?
Wow, it's changed a lot. So when I got into it, it was all touted as this great, industry leader in training, because when I got in there was when the financial crisis was. They basically just went, oh, well, we don't have time for you trainees, so you're kind of on your own. And we just sort of, it sort of imploded at that point. I don't know. They've done a lot of different iterations of it in the past. It was helpful to me. I did have some people that I worked with there that did mentor me at some level, which was helpful. But that was also some of the clients that I called for that particular advisor to help out. But it was also a huge, giant corporation, which I had known a long time ago that's not where I wanted to be. So it still wasn't quite the right. I mean, I knew this wasn't the right fit. I was hoping to get the experience there and take advantage of it. Lasting 7 years has its good things and its bad things, right? I mean, I had, kids to feed and things, little things like that. But that really was not where I wanted to be. So it took me until 2014 to transition out of Merrill.
Interesting. So, and 2014 was when you did what?
What I did is I actually moved what I thought was a good move toward an independent advisor. Because at that point, I'd already taken my CFP, passed it, gotten experience requirement was already done. So I had all that. It was like, okay, what's my next step now? Because I could just tell that Merrill was going through some issues and I just didn't want to be there. They'd gotten bought by Bank of America. So that was part of it too, where it was even bigger than it was at Merrill. And I just I don't want to be here. So that was part of it. But that happened actually earlier, like in 2008, but it just took me a long time to figure out what I needed to do next. So I did go to Waddell & Reed, which was as a quote unquote supported independent, which didn't turn out to be either of those things. So that was not the best fit for me either. That was still, there's a lot in both of those companies, a lot of pressure to sell particular products. And that's to me the piece that really didn't fit. That I did not want to be a salesman selling something that was good for the corporation, but not necessarily good for my client. That's the piece. That's where the disconnect was with that, doing it that way with the broker dealer or a independent broker dealer. It was the same thing. I was always under somebody else's rules of how I was supposed to do my job.
Not always fun.
No.
You said that it wasn't quite the independence you were looking for. I guess define that a bit. What does it mean to be an independent RIA or not be?
Well, first of all, when you work for a broker dealer or an RIA or an independent broker dealer, you are paid based on a grid. In other words, a pay schedule, and most of that money goes to the broker dealer and not to you, right? Plus, you are required to use whatever technologies they have, whatever processes they have. They're very strict about everything that you do, everything. I was asked one time to be on a radio show. They said, no, you can't do that. Really? Okay. So I was like, all right. So, because they wanted a script of everything that I was going to say, and that just didn't. It was just way too controlling. I understand it. They had thousands of advisors, and that's what they had to do to control that. So that's what they did, but it just was not what I wanted to do. So they also spent a lot of time making you really scared that everything that you do is going to come back and bite you in the butt. And that's because they have the deep pockets and all the other things. Now, I also know that I wanted to do what was right for my clients, which is, obviously what the CFP is as a, fiduciary. That's what we are supposed to be doing for our clients. And I didn't always feel that that's exactly how it was when I worked at either broker dealer.
Yeah. Yeah. I've worked with so many different members over the years, but the folks that come from the broker dealers do come with this fear of compliance, but I really do think it actually helps them embrace the chief compliance role, that it's something that they may be scared of it, but they at least really respect it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I would say that's true. It's a little daunting when you're not when you actually have to do it too, but
Yes, absolutely. So when did you get your CFP, and did one of the companies help you pay for it or help you with the experience with it? What support did you get with the CFP?
so this was crazy year. So I decided in November. No, I think, okay. So I got remarried actually in 2012, but I got engaged in October of 2011. And I decided in November of 2011, well, I'm going to get married this year. And why don't I just take the CFP too?
Perfect.
So,
They go hand in hand.
Why not? So I spent that whole year from my engagement, basically to the beginning of November till right after we got married, to study for the test. So I was at Merrill at the time. They did reimburse me for my costs.
Cool.
So that was good. That was a good thing out of all that. But that was the most insane year I've ever lived through. I look back and I go, how did I have energy to do all that? I don't know. It just sort of happened. I really knew that's what I wanted to go. I think that's where this industry is heading. I mean, in the sense that like the big industry, I'm thinking there's a lot of us that are already there doing the best for our clients and doing what we're supposed to do as a role. But I think the industry, as much as they're fighting it, needs to be going in that direction. So that's where I was trying to head with all this too. So in my head, as I'm working through all of this is where I wanted to be. And so that's why Merrill no longer fit. And that's why Waddell and Reed didn't fit as I started moving forward. That makes sense.
It sure does.
So I took my test. It was a 2-day test that they don't do it the same way anymore. It was a 2-day test and 8 hours, 5 and 3, I think it was. Yeah. 5 on Friday and 3 hours on Saturday. And then, or I don't know, the opposite, maybe that could be, I don't even remember now. Although I do remember that it was on paper, no computers, and we had to wait 6 weeks to find out whether or not we got our results.
Oh, that's excruciating.
So one of the guys that took the test with me, who I didn't know till we did a test, like a workshop, before our actual final test. I saw him at the store that day, and that's the day we didn't have like as many contacts with everything on our, we weren't connected to the internet every second. And he said, "Did you get your results today?" And I said, "No, did you?" He goes, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh my God, I got to get back to the office." So, and that was only a few years ago. That was in 2013. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I've had it since February of 13.
Good for you. Good for you. So let's go back to what you were talking about before in the 2008 period of your life. I love how you say that you've had always a burning desire to help people. I think that that's a real theme among the XYPN members. And I imagine during times like 2008 and where we find ourselves today, after a few really rough days in the market, how do you help clients during times like this?
Well, I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot because it's been a pretty tumultuous few weeks here. I think having had that experience in 2008 and knowing how we came out of that, it's important that it might feel different, but I don't necessarily think that it is different this time, right? The markets tend to have a lot of volatility and react maybe irrationally to things that happen. But I think if you can talk to the client up front about the amount of risk they're willing to take and really have that serious conversation. And I almost every single time I have that conversation, we talk about '08, and I say, this could have been way worse than that. But had you stayed invested, and we talk about whether they were invested at that time or not, or if they have that history, it's helpful because they know, okay, well, if they had lived through it, they understand that and I asked them, did you stay invested or not? What did you do at the time? So I think if they can realize that, yes, this is a little bumpy, this maybe not how it's ideal, to try to stay invested as much as possible. So I try to encourage them to look at the numbers what does that mean to them? And is their life going to change right now? Nothing, if they don't have to sell, why would they sell it right now if they don't need the money? Right. And it doesn't make sense. And I always ask, when would you get back in? That's how do you know that? When are you going to know when that bottom is? Or when do you, how do you jump back in? That's the hardest piece. So just try to tell them that you just need to kind of hold still. Hopefully we have the right plan for them. And if not, we can tweak it a little bit, lower some of it if we had to, but I try to keep them invested as much as possible.
How would you say it's different now than it was in 2007, 2008 to work with your clients? I imagine quite different because these are your clients and you're at your own firm. Is the sentiment different? Is the actual coaching different?
Well, honestly, I haven't had that many clients calling me. I have done some outreach with emails, but there's a whole bunch of things like, oh, well, I know everyone knows what's going on now. Pretty much if you're alive and you have a pulse, that it's been a tough couple weeks. I've sent out an email sort of saying, stay the course kind of thing. I encourage them to call me if they have any questions or problems. Any email transactions I have with people, I always do that or whatever. I probably could do some more just calling and saying, how you doing? How you feeling? But I have not done that as of yet.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more generally about how you serve your clients. You've got a pretty impressive number of client households. I'm wondering, what kind of cadence do you keep with them? And are you on a personal relationship level with your clients? Talk to us about that relationship.
A lot of my clients I had quite a few of them when I started at Merrill, and I've brought them along with me. So unlike someone who's just starting their business and starting from scratch, I didn't have to do that. So, that was helpful for me. So I've known a lot of these clients for years and years. And I would say most of my clients, I have a very, I guess personal relationship is true. I guess that's true. I suppose I don't go out, dinner with them all the time or anything, but I know them, they call up, we're really friendly. We have, I know who they are. Yeah. I saw them on the street. I would know who they were. So, I do feel like that's, pretty personal relationship with those clients. And I do require, and I do have a lot of clients that don't have a lot of money. So I do have ones that are smaller size, which was important to me in doing this because that was a whole group that was left out totally when I was working at Bank of America. That was, I couldn't work with anyone that had under $250,000 in investable assets. So it left a lot of people out. So the people that I did, I do have, I do insist that I try to get them to talk to me at least once a year. So sometimes people are interesting in that way. They don't always respond, even if you're taking care of their money. So, which I don't get, but it is what it is.
Interesting. The money's with the expert. They don't need to think about it.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Mentally, I don't know where that is. That would not be me, but I think people handle things differently. I remember one client telling me during 2008 that, I don't even look at my retirement account because what's it going to do anyway? So I know there's some head in the sand sort of thing for people, but I guess that surprises me at some level.
So if I was a new client of yours, what would the engagement look like?
First of all, I really encourage people, like I've been getting referrals through my current clients, but also through FAFSA or NAPA XY planning. And what I do first is have an initial either phone call or in-person meeting. Most of my clients are local, so I really do like the personal meeting. I think it helps because they can meet me personally. They kind of see how I work, what my environment is. I think it's helpful for them to get at that comfort level. And once we have that, I also encourage them to look at my website. I'm very transparent. All my fees are on there. The links to my ADV, everything that I think people would want to know would be there. And I think it's good too, because that way you also weed out people that maybe don't want to pay that much for you, or they don't think that's a value. So that's a way to we self-select themselves out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just get a better feeling for me and how I run my business. But so I would do that. We'd have a meeting. We would determine at that point, and possibly after that, if we're going to work together. I have also talked to people, and then I've decided I didn't think it was a good fit. So then
Awesome.
I usually will send an email at that point and just explaining why I don't think it's a good fit. And then I encourage them to keep finding the right person for them and then give them some places to look. So
what would prompt you to believe that someone isn't a right fit for you?
I think it has to do with, thinking of one example off the top of my head, just kind of how this woman was reflecting what she was trying to accomplish. And I didn't think that I was at the right time, the right person to help her, because I think she had less personal issues that she wanted to take care of and more kind of on the business side. And she didn't even know what direction she was going. She was like all over the place. And I was like, she's got to figure this out before I can help her, really. So that was for me, not a good fit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned finding clients through XY Planning Network as well as NAPFA. Both XY and NAPFA have a Find an Advisor profile page where consumers can come and find CFP members. I'm wondering what.
And also,
go ahead.
I was going to say also CFP too. I've
nice.
got some referrals that way too. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your primary source of new clients, or where are you finding your new clients?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not really going out to try to find new clients proactively, I guess. I sort of feel like at this point, this is a comfortable number of households for me. And I'm not, actively trying to find people. If a current client of mine refers somebody, or I have, someone that comes through that way, either through one of those referral sources and has a conversation and they're a good fit, then I will take them. I probably have also sort of thought about not taking as many clients that are on the lower level, just because it's harder to handle those clients. As you get more clients, those people are harder to kind of work through the system. So I've sort of stopped. I haven't really worked to find new clients. I'll just look at the ones I'm getting referred, if the referral makes sense or not. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you primarily offering AUM, or is it monthly subscription for a lot of your clients?
No, most of my clients are AUM clients. Okay. I do have some subscription clients, but that has not really panned out as well for me. And I think partly because most of my base already was familiar with the AUM. And for a lot of clients, it's also easier for them to pay you with AUM, because to them, it's sort of like, this is money I don't really know that I have, and I don't see it go out every month.
I hear that all the time, all the time. But I'm interested, because I know our listeners would be interested, for those of them who have clients at wherever they may be, broker dealer, otherwise, that they would hope that they would remain with them when they launch their own RIA. So I'm wondering, what was your experience transitioning clients?
Okay, I want to make sure I understand your question. So you're saying that people that are now starting their own IRA and they're able to transition, because I was on protocol, which meant that I could bring my clients with me if they want to come with me. Yeah.
Okay.
Was.
So, what does that mean? I've not heard
that.
So,
and I've sort of like been out of that, broker dealer world for a while, but what was happening is back even before I started there at Merrill and some of the bigger wirehouses, what they were doing is they were just moving advisors from client, from company to company, broker dealer to broker dealer, and they ended up suing each other all the time for all this. So some of them signed what they called a protocol agreement, which meant that if you had a advisor move from one broker dealer to another, if you were both under protocol, you could move your clients without fear of being sued. So there was some of that going on. That somewhat changed, but I don't know exactly where that is now. But when I went from Merrill to Waddell and Reed, both of them were protocol. So I could take my clients from Merrill. I mean, what I mean by take your clients, you could take your mailing list with you. You could take their name, their address, their phone number. You couldn't take any other information other than that. So the client still had to, want to work with you. I mean, but you could contact them and tell them where you went.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
It sure does.
So then I went from Merrill to Waddell and Reed and brought quite a few clients, not all my clients at that point. And then from Waddell and Reed to my own RIA, basically brought all of those clients with me.
Wow. And what was the conversation like with those clients to discuss kind of going from there to a fee-only firm? I mean, was that something that you started to explain to them?
Yeah, I did. And I just basically explained sort of what I said earlier about how I didn't want to have my practice driven by what others' sales agenda was, right? Of selling a certain product or, being paid a different price for something that I offered the client. Because, if you think about it, right, and logically, if someone's going to get paid $10 or $3 to sell somebody the same thing, human nature is you're going to try to sell. If you're a salesman, you're going to try to sell the $10 thing, not the $3 thing, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take that out of the picture altogether, and then you're just doing, hopefully you should be doing anyway, but is for the client's best interest and not what someone's telling you is a better deal for you as a salesperson. So that's where I have that total conflict of how much this money works in our country, in this business.
Did any clients feel like you hadn't been authentic before, given that you weren't fee only?
No, but I just said, I just told them that there was a lot of pressure for us to do certain things a certain way. And I didn't want to be under that kind of pressure. And so that was not, I mean, they, a lot of them had known me a long time. So that wasn't it. I mean, I did have pushback like, oh, really? You're going to change again?
Again, Martha?
But I'll try to make it easy for you. And actually change is kind of one of the things that we deal with a lot anyway. So you have to just sort of help people through that and try to make it as easy as possible. But.
And what is that process? Is it just a lot of paperwork? It's repapering at the custodians, or what goes into it?
Yeah, it's repapering. I mean, when I moved from Waddell and Reed to my own IRA, my IRA was approved like my birthday weekend in October of 17. And I think by the end of the year, I had probably 85% of my clients already over. And it happened pretty fast because, I work with TD, at least I'm currently working with TD, and their process was pretty good. I was able to do a lot, either in person paperwork with clients or doing it through DocuSign, and it was quite efficient and it worked really well. So,
do you feel like most of your clients understand and respect the concept of fee only?
I think so. I think they like that because it takes a lot of the question marks away. They know that I always say, you're the only one paying me. So, just so you understand that I'm not getting paid any other way. And I think that makes a lot of sense to them because they know that I am beholden only to them as, in their best interest, which I mean, it's supposed to be that way anyway. It just clarifies that for them.
Mm-hmm. Over your years of running your firm, have you ever hit a wall where you thought this isn't going to work?
Oh, I think you have days where you're like, oh, really? I don't know. After I did my own RIA, I was like, this is awesome. Why did I not do this before?
Yay.
And I think, I know the why. Well, part of it was because I think I felt like I didn't know enough, right? I didn't know enough to do it. Places like Merrill Lynch have you come and learn there. They don't want you to leave. So they don't really tell you anything about how to do this on your own. You don't even understand it really. I mean, it's just this big I don't know, you're just trying to learn enough about what you're trying to do for your clients. And, how could you possibly go out on your own? And, it just seems to be very complicated. And when I went to Waddell and Reed, I was like, okay, well, I'm getting closer, but it still wasn't right. And then actually, I was just telling you earlier, Maddie, but I saw Joe Morgan. I met him at a FPA conference, and, I saw that he was on XY Planning, and I was like, what's XY Planning? And then I started it was January of 17. And I said, I need to get out of it. I need to do this myself. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what it's going to take, but I have to do this my own way, because I was just so tired of the same stuff in just a different place. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So I spent that next whatever months till October. So 8 months, 9 months, researching everything, back and forth, talking to as many people that I could talk to and interviewing people and trying to figure this out. And XY Planning was like an awesome source for that. I said to Michael at one point, I said, I saw you at an FPA thing 6 months ago, and you never said anything about XY Planning. I'm like, why not? And he said, well, I don't want to toot my own horn. I was like, oh my God, toot your horn. So you have to do that. So I was like, this is the best kept secret, but it's been awesome for me. And the people there have been amazing. And, everyone's really helpful, and I hope to help other people. So if anyone's listening to this that would like to talk about it, I'm happy to do that. So.
Oh, what a generous offer. I'm intimately familiar with the imposter syndrome. I've struggled with it, but it's a very common theme that we talk a lot about within XYPN. I think, there's a gender aspect to it. Women are probably more likely to feel that way, especially in this industry, but just generally becoming an entrepreneur is very scary. And I've witnessed it through so many members over the years of just kind of second guessing your ability to do this. Do I have enough designations? Are my clients going to understand it? Are they going to respect it? How have you dealt with your imposter syndrome over these years, and specifically over the past couple as you've built your own firm?
Well, it's gotten, I think as you are doing this longer and longer, it gets easier and easier that you feel like you've seen enough things, you've had enough experience in it to feel less that way. I do still think it's really difficult for women in this industry. Yes. And that's the other thing about XY Planning that's been awesome, is that they have such diversity and, really, I think I've asked you after conference, okay, how many women showed up for that? What's the percentage of women? Yes. Right. And it's really important to me, because I think this is a really good business for women, and they just don't know it.
Right.
And because we're really good at having conversations with people, listening to them, understanding it, and try to help them kind of, plan for the future. And I think women are have really good skill sets for that. And we should be doing more of that. And I'd like to make sure that we have more women in this business, in this industry.
I agree. This month, we are at 22% women representation within our network. And that is up from, I suppose it was higher back in the day when we were smaller, right. But that is a percentage that has stayed strong over the years. I'm wondering, as a woman, how do you feel like this landscape has changed over the years? Is it more welcoming for us in this industry, or anything?
Well, that's interesting. I actually have not gone to a lot of conferences. I remember going to one when I started, I think at Waddell and Reed, FPA conference, and it still was a lot of guys. And then XY Planning, so that's been kind of my only other source of conferences, has been way more welcoming to women. You see that, you just walk into that and you just see there's just a lot more. And then I think the men at XY Planning have also been really much more welcoming than the general public in this business. This is a really interesting business, because I worked with some women that were at Merrill that had started in the 80s, and, they had to survive by acting like the guys. So yeah. I don't, I like that we won't necessarily have to act like them to be successful in this business. So I've seen it from, the good and the bad side on that. And I'd like to make sure that, we can bring our heart and what we care about to helping people be successful financially.
Absolutely. And live up to your goal of helping people. I think that's exactly it. I agree that the quality of XYPN member in terms of wanting diversity within our industry is really high at the XYPN level. I believe that there's kind of a certain quality of member that joins XYPN that really is interested in shaking up and disrupting this industry. We've been so proud over these years with the XYPN Diversity Committee to make our conference a really welcoming place, both with our anti-harassment policy and our daycare, but also just trying to showcase that this is a better industry when it's a diverse industry generally. And I'm wondering how you mentioned that it's a great profession for women. And I'm wondering from your own experience, what has running your own firm offered you that you just wouldn't have had elsewhere?
Oh, I think just the flexibility to do things. My husband and I talk about this all the time as we start getting our personal side getting closer to retirement. What do we want to do? Well, I can create a schedule that works for my life, right? And for my clients, and I can still be gone when I need to be gone. And I can travel and I can still do a lot of what I do, even remotely. So I'm not tied to a location necessarily. So that's really helpful in running your own business and having that part of it, and you're in control of it. I mean, there's a little piece of you all the time like, oh, I'm not working hard enough. What? It's that work ethic thing, like if I'm not in the office every minute of the day, then, am I not working? So I think we have to sort of be less hard on ourselves in that, and sort of understand that part of what we're offering ourselves in this business is the flexibility to, schedule our appointments so that they fit into our schedule, and our clients, same thing. I mean, honestly, if you can't get a client in when it's on your calendar, you tell them, well, what's good for you. Let's work it through. But normally they'll pick a time on the calendar that works for them and make it happen. So it's not like we can't do things. And I've liked all the tools I've been using for that, like Calendly for setting my schedule. And that's really helpful for the clients. So, spend a lot of time going back and forth on scheduling.
Yeah. Totally. One of the XYPN staff core values is be well being you. And the goal is to really show up mentally, physically, spiritually, all the ways to show up really well at work means that we have to be really taking care of ourselves privately. And the flexibility that we've been afforded here at XYPN, I have found to be the most important to being able to achieve that. Just as you say, being able to choose when you take meetings, be able to choose when you wake up and engage and work. I really find that to be the most beneficial part of me being able to, show up being well, right. Being me. I'm wondering, how do you balance your work-life balance? Do you have a routine you stick to? How do you be well being you?
Oh, some days are better than others.
Yeah, I got you on that.
Well, I don't know. Lately I've been, and it's funny because I'm a very creative person on just in who I am. I love art and artists. Lately I've been doing a lot of fiber art, so quilts and sewing and stuff.
Cool.
And so that's kind of my, creativity outside of the office. So I've been doing a lot of that. I did a lot of that for Christmas. And so just finished a couple quilts, and I just made a little baby dress the other day. So so that's kind of like one of the ways that I can help balance it. You can't be creative financially with people's money. So I have to find that other creativity part on something else. So, I mean, that's one of the things I do. I travel a lot with my husband too. So we do a lot of things that are good for me mentally. And I don't feel like I'm, I have to do what someone else is telling me to do, which is also can be difficult for people that have been in the workforce and someone's always told them what to do. Yes. So there's a little part of that, and how you were brought up too, and whether or not, you feel like you feel guilty when you're not in the office, right? You have to get yourself to that point where you feel.
Yeah. And I'd imagine as a business owner, you probably feel a lot of that kind of haunts you a bit, that this is, it's only going to work if you work it.
Right. Right. And I suppose if I was out there trying to grow my business dramatically, I would probably have to be here more. So, but I do have that flexibility. So that for me has been good.
Yeah.
After all these years of corporate life, now doing it myself. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm wondering how you've leveraged a community or a network over the years, and has that been an integral part of your success?
Well, there's been some local women's organizations that I feel very, attached to locally. XY Planning's been a great group for me to have those connections. Yeah, because sometimes when you're in your office, and I do share an office with somebody else, but it's just he's another business person, so he's not here very often. So I'm alone a lot in my office. So yes, I need to have those, and I need to either get out, because I don't always leave to go to lunch or whatever either. So so part of that is something that you have to stay active in, I think, and find that right group that's a good fit for you, and make sure that you are doing that. And it's gotten networking has got such a bad name. I don't know that's sometimes that for people, it's like networking, ew. And it's more of just like finding people that you connect with, that you can occasionally say, hey, I'm running into an issue. What would you do? Or something a little bit different than just, hi, how are you?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of cliche to say, oh, I'm networking, but I've really, it's amazing as XY approaches its 6th birthday, for some reason, I keep just coming back to this word network, and how that in terms of its definition is that's where the power is. It's not about shaking as many hands as you can. It's about really leveraging your network to not recreate the wheel, to answer questions you may not be able to, learn more, stay sane, all of those things. That it's not just about, making sure you're networking every day. It's about really using your network. And I've heard members before use the network as a value add to their clients, that, hey, if you have, a question I can't answer, I have this group of XYPN members that may be able to help answer those questions, things like that. Have you ever worked within a mastermind group or anything like that?
Yeah, I actually have done a few of those at different points. Sometimes I'm a little frustrated with that, but it just depends. Yes. Sometimes I think it's interesting. I think it's good to do those. I did that first with my group, which I'm still part of as XY Planning. That when we first all started at the same time, we were all kind of at different levels, but we've sort of still met. I think we're meeting tomorrow, actually. And that's 2-3 years in now or something. So that's interesting. But I also find you have to continue to find ways to, if you're going to have a mastermind group, to make sure it's still of value to you, because I do find that can fade after a while if you don't continue to kind of re-energize that group as to what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that is a difficult part of that. Sometimes it's just good to say hi to everybody and, catch up, but sometimes you really need that group for other solutions that you're working through with yourself, with your clients or with your business or something.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And to not put all your eggs in one basket, assuming that one networking group is going to be able to solve all your questions and all your needs, that, having a working group, but also having a group of friends that have become your friends because you've worked together for 3 years is a really powerful dynamic that, you go to them for different things. I'm wondering, what are some of your goals for this year and the next few years with your firm? It doesn't sound like you're going to slow down anytime soon, but it sounds like you're kind of where you want to be.
Well, I am sort of where I want to be. I am, like I said, I'm still taking on clients. I'm just not actively going to find them. So that's always interesting to meet new people and see what kind of a fit they are and what you can do to help them. One of the things I keep tossing around is figuring out, how do I bring somebody on to my team, either as a way to bring more diversity into the business, okay, so a woman or minority, somehow to help them understand this business. So I think I have things I can teach and share, but also I don't have necessarily enough business that I could, have them full time or. So I think I'm sort of heading toward maybe getting an intern for a period of time and doing something like that. And then possibly that would be someone that I could transition my business to. But it's also, it feels like that's too daunting, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. So I don't know. I keep sort of playing with that piece of it.
It's amazing how long that decision takes. I've known some members that we talked 2 years ago and they felt that way, and we talked today and they still
That
they're
was
just
probably
not
me,
totally
Maddie.
sold. It may have been, Martha. It may have been. What is your expectation for this industry? Do you think, having spent a couple decades in it, are we changing? Are we disrupting it? Or are we on the right path to a more diverse and accessible industry?
Oh, I still think we have a long way to go. It's kind of, I don't want to say disheartening, because I think if I stay focused and see the XY planning group grow, because when I started, it was like, I think it was under 500. Where
It
are we
was.
now? Like,
yeah. 11, nearly 1,200.
Yeah, okay. So that's grown a lot. That gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, there's so many advisors out there. So they don't even know about this, right? They don't even know about XY planning, which is, good and bad. But, like I think that there's a lot more people that are talking this way that want to make sure that clients are taken care of correctly in the right way. And that's what I think is good for XY planning and the CFP. So as you see more of that kind of show up in the industry, the better. So more of, taking care of the clients the right way.
I love that. What piece of advice would you have for someone either currently in this industry or maybe even not yet in this industry who is thinking about starting their own RIA?
Well, I would say, take a really serious look at it. I think it's it's an awesome business. It's an awesome place to have your own business where you're taking care of clients the way that is best for the clients and is great for you. And I think it's important that we don't just let something like corporate America, hold us down away from where we should be, right? Just, hopefully for other people listening out there, it doesn't take you as long as it took me, because it took me a long time. It took me 10 years to do that. I was like, what? It shouldn't take that long. And, the most shocking thing, I think, for a lot of people is when they're in the broker-dealer world and they're so used to, their clients getting billed a certain amount of money on their AUM, right? And then their paycheck reflecting such a small amount of that, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have your own RIA, basically all of that money comes to you, and then you pay your bills from that, your business bills, right? And then you pay yourself from it. And it's a sort of an eye opener when you realize, wow, so that's what they were getting paid on my clients. And now, all of a sudden that's yours. Because they, basically it's between the way they pay is somewhere between like 25% and 35% is what they pay the advisors, like at a Miro, for instance. I don't know what they are currently, but there's all these weird, things. But if you say, you're charging a client, $100, let's use that as a number, right? You're getting between $25 and $35 for that client, and they're getting the rest. So now that $100 is all yours, and then you figure out how to pay for everything inside of your business. So to me, that was quite eye-opening. And it's a different way to look at it, in the sense that, you're running your own business. So yeah, it's serious. You got to take care of it. You got to make sure things are done properly and that you're following the rules and taking care of your clients the best you can.
Great advice. Martha, it has been a total dream to work with you over these years, and so much fun to record this episode. I think our listeners are going to really enjoy learning from a woman like you and all of your experience. So thank you so much for everything you're doing in this industry with your clients, with XYPN, and just generally. I so appreciate it. Thank you, Martha.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, and I love talking to you, and I love always seeing you. So it's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with Alan and Kitsis, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.